Hey everybody, it's week 10 of the NFL season. This is the Pro Football Ireland NFL preview show, NFL preview podcast presented by SBK. Michael McQuaid, Mark Hogan, Jason Hayes, as we say, guten Tag to everyone this week. Mark, as I always really poorly multitask and get this podcast out to people, how are you doing? What's the crack?
Doing all right, yeah. So finally, we are week 10. We're into the double-digit figures. Are we no longer able to say that the season is young? I saw the Colts were saying earlier on, I was reading about them. We're going to be talking about, of course, that game coming up, the first game in Berlin ever. Is saying that it's still a young season. I was like, I don't know anymore. I think we're at that point where it's panic stations in a couple of months. This thing's going to be wrapped up. Jason, what do you reckon?
Yeah, look, it's every cliche, but like you just can't believe when you get into the season how fast it flies by. It's been an eventful season, a lot of storylines. Big storyline this week for Cardinals fans, so I'm a bit all over the place at the moment. Don't know what to make of that situation. You might want to cut me off because I could speak about it for about 10 minutes. So
I thought you were going to come in and say a big news story with the Berlin game getting Sauce Gardner, but of course, having to tie it back to Kyler Murray getting benched. Michael, is Jason getting benched for that comment?
I honest to God, like, if they were 7-2, I'd be like, yeah, like let's talk about it.
No. That's a news story this week. We're allowed to mention
that is a news story, 100%. For a team that has the same points differential as the Bills, and the Bills being a 6-2 team, the Cardinals have lost to the Packers, to the Colts. They've lost against the Rams and 49ers by barely any points at all. They are actually a legit team. We saw that against the Cowboys. The defense was serious the other day. We did not anticipate starting with the Cardinals. Thank you, Jason, for bringing me into your rabbit hole. But instead, I suppose we should mention in that Cowboys game against Cardinals, a touchdown was scored by Marshawn Kneeland, who was sadly passed away, obviously, earlier on today. The NFL is not made up of just Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen's. I would not have known Kneeland. He was a special teams player for the Cowboys and scored on a punt that was blocked. But it's like, yeah, I mean, tragic is not even a close enough word to describe. It's just like, we all get such enjoyment from the NFL and sitting in on our Sunday evenings and just getting soaked into it. And we all have our favorite players, but like, yeah, it really hits home when something as tragic as that has happened days after the guy was seen celebrating on an Island game on Monday night.
Yeah, like it's what do you say to that? Apart from the fact it is tragic, it's beyond awful. I was sitting at my phone that popped up earlier on. I thought it was one of those tweets where you're like, no, that can't be real. And it sadly is. And I guess all I would say is, folks, please, if you need support or help, please talk to somebody, because people will listen to you. And awful. What can you say? You watch a video from Monday night and then you see that. It's horrible. And our thoughts and prayers are genuinely with his girlfriend, his family, and everybody involved with the Cowboys organization. All the Cowboys fans, there's at least a few thousand in Ireland and across Europe as well. So yeah, just thinking of them over this weekend. It'll be a very poignant
other weekend. People. We obviously had a nasty situation only a handful of weeks ago with Jude McAtamney seeing it on social media, and that isn't the case here, but certainly these are real people and have real feelings too.
Yeah, it's not nice at all, and we wish him and his family the very, very best. And I almost feel awful going into a podcast now, but we're going to have to just try and move on, as bad as it is. I mean, I'm sure the Cowboys, like the top class organization that they are, they'll do their utmost and their very best, not just to feature him and to pay tribute to him, but to also pay tribute to him not just this weekend, but throughout the rest of the season and going forward. So we wish them genuinely the very, very best. It is week 10 of the season. It's weird to see that it is week 10. And there are a number of different announcements that I need to make before we move on. First off, if you like having the NFL on TV in Ireland, maybe watch Virgin Media 2 on Sunday. The game is on at 2:30 from Germany. It's the Colts against the Falcons. I believe both teams fly over this evening, and the Falcons apparently this is the rumor doing the rounds, right? The Falcons leave the plane tomorrow morning. Friday morning, if you're on the podcast in the car, what's the crack? Friday morning, they go straight to practice. They're not going to the hotel. They go straight to practice, and then they get the rest of the weekend off before Sunday. And then the Colts are in the evening time. I'm going to like a Thanksgiving party in Jermahans. I've got the link in the bio because there's a big guest being announced tomorrow night. It's that big that Mark Hogan and Jason don't have a clue who it is. and it's not me. And everybody's
I was hoping to be myself, but I can't commit to being there with work on time. So
you will definitely be there.
Yeah, but my name didn't make it on the poster.
I didn't like the NFL made the poster. Yeah. I didn't make the poster.
No, here, but you know what? Fair play. What is it? €25? I think it's €24 plus a booking charge, and that gets you a pint and a mains. Try and find that in Dublin, let alone with the entertainment side of it too.
And the guest is like, I'm telling you now. Okay, take me out of the equation here. Okay, you won't get a better Thanksgiving night in Dublin or in Belfast or in Cork or wherever when this guest is announced.
And come here, we had the food last week. We had the food last year, Michael, paid for. As in we paid for it ourselves before anyone took a handout or whatever.
Good food.
Class food. No, hold on a second. It was a proper turkey. It was serious food. So it's like, no word of a lie, my partner Lynette is looking after ESB's or her little team in Works Christmas lunch. Where are they going? Ger Mahon's. Food in Ger Mahon's class. I went in recently, again, paid for it. It's not like Rob's looking after me, although he's a fantastic guy and has got me a pint before. Went in there 2 weeks ago for the wings deal. So it's 2 for 1 on wings. And I was not told to say this, but the wings were that good. It was 2 for 1 on wings, Michael. You have to go up to the 3rd floor, and there was a lovely little crowd of NFL people. Usually I am working early. I don't go in. It was after one of the Virgin Media games, went in there. It was actually top notch, I have to say that. And again, Michael, not paid to say that, but did genuinely enjoy my time in Ger Mahon. So if anyone's looking for a place to go and get good food, that's where it is.
There will be a podcast in between the half of the first game. I believe it's Packers-Lions. There'll be a mini podcast each time after that first game. And then a mini podcast, I believe. The second game is the Chiefs-Cowboys, so around 10 o'clock. And then I'm leaving, I'm not going to lie. But I'll be there for most of the night. We're going to have a bit of crack. And the guest is great. Watch this space as we finish off our negotiations. Very intriguing. Jason, I didn't mention your name there because you live like 7 hours away. 6-7's gone now. We can't really say it anymore. But you're very, very welcome to come if you want to as well. And everyone's welcome to come. Hopefully see a lot of people. I am publicly stating I will not be down. It is ticketed. The tickets are at linktr.ee/PF Ireland. It's more of a JR Mahon's thing. We're just sharing it in ours. But come on down. Join us. Bit of crack. There is genuinely a big guest. If you're an NFL fan in Ireland, you'll know exactly who it is whenever it's announced. And no, it's not Neil Reynolds. On that, there is a tour. Check out the link. I'm not going to go. We'll talk about that at a different point. I do want to say one thing about the podcast being presented by SBK before we start here. Obviously, great odds. There's no casino. There's nothing like that. There is just a sportsbook odd. We are going to put a link in the bio of this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and on social this weekend. It's a link for only 30 people. They have got the Colts at evens to win in Berlin. If you go on any other sports book, you wouldn't even get them at half that price almost. So it's a very decent offering by our partners. And if you like it, go for it. Obviously 18 plus, please be gamble aware and do share your betting slips because I know Mark enjoys that at the weekend. He's very good at that part. So we'll see. Not
recently, unfortunately, but getting back there again.
We will see. Right. We're going to go to this game, Berlin, first. Who's all going to Berlin? Am I seeing you boys there this weekend, or what's the crack? What's the story, gents?
Unfortunately, not. A few personal kind of commitments over the next couple of weekends, so can't make it. We'll be jealously watching from my couch, which is also not a bad substitute because we know how intense these international weekends go. So I'll leave the beer drinking, the fun side of things to you, Mick.
I'll not be drinking. Maybe drinking a mezzo mix or something like that there. It is funny. Jason sort of said it there like as well, Mark. With all these different international games now, it is like, I think if you'd done every game, you would be absolutely mental. But looking forward to got a bit of fun happening this weekend. And then obviously next weekend is El Grande Juego. So very excited. And you can tell my wife is delighted with the prospect of me going by myself to Germany and Spain over the next 2 weekends. As he has a sip of water before talking about this.
Because the thing with me with Berlin is I do have my flights booked, but I just saving. And you know when you say there in terms of going,
hold on, have you actually got flights booked?
I have my flight booked, but it's like I'm not going over because that's the thing. It's like we're so lucky that we get to go to the games and we get the press pass, but at the end of the day, it still costs a lot of money flying over, hotels, food. If you do have a schnein over there. Not drinking myself at the moment. The wedding's coming up, looking after itself, hopefully. But it's one of those at the moment that's just like couldn't get it across the line, and I'd be devastated, especially like Colts are looking so good. But I mean, it is a game that we're going to preview, and it is a good game. Like I got a text off someone earlier on. They were asking me, was it going over there? A Falcons fan that we met in London last year. And I said, well, I'd rather see the Falcons go up against an actual team rather than, see a layup. Like when the Rams got to see their team earlier on in the year play against the Jags, and we were saying behind the scenes on Virgin Media, being like, would we rather this game, which is an absolute blowout, or the week before where it's too defensive between the Jets and the Broncos? So this, when you're seeing their Falcons, is like, okay, we get to go up against the Colts. I think it's extremely exciting, Michael.
I'm really, really excited for it. I think it's going to be that really high end game, and I've really forgot that you had flights booked. So I'm going to say it publicly now. Book the flights, get on the flight, and use the cheapest.
I cancelled my hotels.com earlier on, and it was at a good price and everything.
Wait for it. For it. Sleep on the floor in the hotel and come in and come out. I think you can do it in a bar. I can probably get you a credential in the meantime. Olympiastadion, they're not going to go there next year. It's a one-off. It's an iconic stadium for so many different reasons. I'm just going to say that now. And please do, if you are heading out this weekend, folks, can you please get in touch with us? I know Mark was talking about a Falcons fan there. We know there's different Colts fans around Ireland. We'll give Andy a shout out who's heading over this weekend. Hopefully going to get a stein with him at some point. I really messed up, Jason, because I only realised at 5 o'clock today that Union Berlin are playing Bayern Munich on Saturday. Nobody told me, even though I probably should have checked it myself. And a ticket has been acquired.
Ah, brilliant. I know like tickets in the Bundesliga are meant to be affordable, but what's the resale market? Maybe I know your wife is sitting next to you, so maybe you're not allowed to say right now.
That's nine. That's 9.
Thank God she's not listening into the podcast, because I've already been told. He showed me the screen of what you paid before he jumped on the podcast, Jason, because it's not allowed to be whispered out loud. So
that is not correct.
Feel like we're talking about Lynn.
I will say this about the Germans, and I'm talking about the NFL community. The NFL community in Germany is like I'm so excited for next weekend because there's so many great people in Spain, and I'm so excited for them regardless of the game. But there's so many good people in Germany, and I'll not say his name, but I got a ticket quite easily and at a very affordable price. That's affordable. And on that note, there may or may not be tickets for Spain or for Portugal against Ireland to make up for the cost of the tickets. Let's move on very quickly here as Mark wants to buy those tickets, even though he won't go to Berlin. Falcons, Colts in Berlin, 2:30 Sunday in Virgin Media. So there is no studio coverage, but the game is being shown in Virgin. There is a pre-game interview with a Colts player now. I can't pronounce his name. I can't. I literally had to look at the pronunciation yesterday. Great guy. I'll try and pronounce it towards the end. Just check out my social media. Check out Virgin social media. It's on there. I'm really, really impressed with this Colts team, Mark, but I believe you're going to start us off firstly by talking about the Falcons.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it's kind of briefly, isn't it? Because, well, not too brief, don't get me wrong, but like the crux of this is the Falcons are really good on defense against the pass, but they're poor against the run. If the Colts establish the run early, then you've stuck with them in and you can't use your best strength. But there's the renewed optimism after seeing what the Steelers did to the Indianapolis Colts last week, forcing Daniel Jones to pass. And then, 5 sacks and 6 turnovers? It's a very obvious thing to say, but like there is now a blueprint that has been put out there that it's if you are able to get into obvious passing downs against that Indianapolis Colts offense, and they cannot use Jonathan Taylor when he's going off for 2 and 3 yards per carry, that is extremely beneficial. It was funny because it was the first time they had a 100-yard receiver, and they had 2 of them last week, the Colts, when they're forced into the passing game. But then on the opposite side of the ball, I feel like it's the opposite side of the field. I think it's the exact same storyline for the Atlanta Falcons. They want to be the Indianapolis Colts. They're using Bijan Robinson at an outrageous level some of the time, and I'll say what I mean in a second. If he's had 75 yards in a game, they're 3-0. If he's under 75 yards, he's 0-3. The last 3 games alone, 238 total yards is part of that 3-game losing streak. He had 236 total yards against the Bills. This offense wants to be through Bijan Robinson, because what does that do? It's been setting up Drake May. We saw in that Buffalo Bills game, Drake London looked absolutely outrageous. He looked like a top 3 wide receiver. As I look towards Jason, I think, well, Marvin Harrison Jr. looked like a top 1 wide receiver against the Cowboys the other day. But when you have that explosion on the other side in the pass, that's what the Falcons want to be able to run with Bijan, but they haven't been doing it successfully of late, and that's just nullifying the whole thing. One interesting nugget that I saw when I was looking together. So what have they been kind of trying to do differently? So they've been using Bijan, hasn't been working. Then that's notifying Drake London. Well, they've actually been going to Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts in the last 3 games, 26 targets. In the 3 games before that, he is 15. So I just think it's an interesting crease as the Falcons try and figure out 10 weeks in, how do they adjust the offense? Because that's the problem they're running into right now.
Funnily, Jason, I feel like Mark has taken about 92% of my Colts offensive bullet points. I'll definitely try my best. Like, you're obviously going to talk about the defense.
Let me jump in. Yeah, you can scramble.
Well, hold on. Let's make the TikTok moment here, right? Because this is like, Jason's got the topic of the week here. Sauce freaking Gardner. We get to see him play in Europe this weekend. First ever player to play in London and in Germany in the same season. But more so than that, Jason, this is huge. I nearly died. I was watching McAfee thinking I was like seeing stuff when it happened. Has everyone seen the video of the 2 kids with the jerseys on X?
Oh, well, first of all, have you seen McAfee's reaction? Was absolutely top notch. And then the 2 boys, the 2 Jets fans, was obviously lethal as well. But it's funny because, like, yeah, Drake London, there you go. It's like Drake London isn't happy to be seeing Sauce Gardner, but yeah, all the fans in that stadium certainly are. Jason, sorry, what were you saying?
And then, yeah, I mean, Leonard Williams, then a couple hours later, it's just a fire sale out of nowhere. I can kind of understand, not to go off on a tangent too much here, but I can understand the Leonard Williams trade in terms of
Quinnen Williams.
Quinnen Williams, sorry, yes. In terms of being a 28-year-old guy, clearly wants out of that organization. He's been there for a few years now and he's had enough. And they got a very good return from him, first and a second. So I kind of like that trade. You're probably not going to be good for a couple of years anyway in this rebuild, so that's good value. Not as gone on this Gardner trade, and I'm speaking from a Jets perspective here, obviously. Yes, 2 first-round picks. You're loading up on first-round picks. Everyone loves it. Everyone's obsessed with first-round picks. What are you looking for in a first-round pick like that? You're looking for a top guy at some key positions, one of which is cornerback. So I think they've traded away 2, cornerstones of their defense, of their franchise. One I can kind of get behind. But the Gardner trade, I just don't see it at this stage of his career. His rookie contract hasn't even set in. But, I mean, on the flip side of this, everything negative I say from a Jets perspective is a massive positive for the Colts. Because when you look at this defense and how they set up against the Falcons and the rest of the season, pass defense has been much more hit and miss than the rush defense. They've been pretty bad at getting off the field on 3rd down. Missed a guy like Javarius Ward at cornerback who they could do it throughout the season. But their saving grace has been timely turnovers. They have 10 interceptions in pass defense, which has managed to get them off the field and save a few drives that otherwise they've looked leaky in. So I love it from the Colts. They could do with help at a cornerback. For Sauce Gardner, I think it's good for him as well. It's going to give him a fresh start, and we all saw how strong he was when he first came into the NFL. Past year and a half maybe hasn't really been firing on all cylinders. He just looked slightly off. So maybe this fresh start and being in a culture where the players and the defense around them are going to be filled with so much fire and energy might inject a bit of that back into him, because it does suck it out of you when you're surrounded by a lackluster roster and a hopeless chance at winning in an organization like the Jets. So hopefully it benefits all parties. And I'm not sure what kind of role he's going to have on Sunday, if at all. I assume he'll be playing. But yeah, that Drake London matchup should be a fun one, Mark. Do you guys have thoughts on Sauce? I can talk a bit about the Colts rush defense in a second, but maybe get your guys' thoughts on Sauce Gardner first.
I think he's too young to have gone off. He's too young to have gone off the boil. I think that it's just a New York Jets problem more than a Sauce Gardner problem.
I think if you look at the cap hit this year and next year, I think the cap hit's 9.25 million next year. And I'll talk about this in a minute, but if everything was to potentially fall apart, because it's only been half a season for this team being at this level, I think they're in a good position and they're in a win now mode. I think it propels them into top 2, top 3 in the AFC. Legitimately, I know they were in that in terms of statistics this year, but I wouldn't be surprised if we're looking at the Colts in February, to be honest. At the minute, I think they're almost a complete team at this point, and they're a fun team to watch. But maybe I'll throw some sort of water on that fire in a minute if you want to talk about that first, Jason.
Yeah, well, just general from a Colts perspective, I suppose I'm interested to see how they respond to that poor display last week, because they aren't used to being in a position like this, obviously. So inexperienced coaches, relatively, the roster isn't used to having success. How will they respond to a performance like that? It's going to be interesting to watch. But
that's where some numbers sometimes get inflated, though, because all right, so the Colts, how good is their run D really when the game is in the melting pot? They've been playing from ahead for so many times that there's plenty of like I say, inflated numbers across the board there. I'm not writing them off, but we just saw them be beaten comprehensively and have their off. Now I think they'd be better prepared for if they're attacked that exact same way by the defense against the Falcons. They have to learn from it too. But we've seen other teams that have gotten out to hot starts that have stalled and somewhat been figured out. And we kind of said that about Shane Steichen, that he definitely took a jump with his play calling this year, and definitely his scheming. And obviously the tight end, Jaylen, I can't think of a second name right now. Jaylen Warren, the tight end.
Yeah.
He's gotten great use out of him. We talked about it a few weeks ago, just where he's putting him on the field and how he's just tricking defenses into thinking he's going to go in motion. He's not. He's going to be a blocker. He's going to receive the ball. This is when week 10, it's okay, do you have the momentum to keep changing up the offense, or have you put everything on tape and the best defensive minds, which they're not really going to play? I mean, I like the Falcons in terms of, like I said, the pass defense, and I love their pass rush. But again, it's the run game is what. Just keep on feeding it off to Jonathan Taylor. Don't be stubborn and try and force a pass game in this, I think.
I think the beautiful thing about this season, not just about the Colts offense that I'm going to talk about, is just how open it is. And we're talking about this every week now, and I think I'm saying it every week. It is legitimately the most open season, I think, in my lifetime as a fan of this league watching it. It would take a very brave man or woman to guess what two teams are going to be in the Super Bowl in February. Hell, it would take a very brave person to guess what teams are in the Final Four come the last week in January. That's how open it is at the minute. And if you think back to the start of the season and our expectations when you're starting to sort of prep and to put into where each division is going to be and where each team is going to go really at the end of it, how many people really seen what the Colts were doing and genuinely believed in them? Because they're playing complementary football. They came into Pittsburgh last week 7-1, but even with that loss, they enter week 10 as the top scoring team in the league. Out of 87 total possessions, they have scored on 62 of those. Now, I didn't do leave insert maths, but I certainly done my GCSE, and I done the one where you can only get a B in it. And I don't know what that is, fraction or percentage wise. That's pretty damn good, lads. They are up until last week. I know they had to pass the ball more in Pittsburgh, but they've been dominating not just the ground, but the pass game. And when you look at the ground, when you look at how they can run in the ways that they can excel, it's absolutely unbelievable. There are some issues for me, and it's not really issues, but when you're 7-2 and when you're sitting into this season, everyone, let's be very, very frank here. Everybody outside of Indianapolis is going to watch this game on Sunday morning, or for us on Sunday afternoon, and think to ourselves, right, the Colts have been in this position before. They were in Frankfurt 2 years ago, but look at the difference that this offense and genuinely the whole team has had over 2 years. They were disappointing last week for a number of reasons, which I'll go into in the offense in a second. But the big question mark for me is, how do they actually regroup and respawn from this? And I think that's going to be genuinely intriguing. What happens on Sunday if Daniel Jones goes out and throws a pick? First or second drive of the game. Genuine conversation, because if he goes out again and gets pressurized, we have not seen that outside of last week, and suddenly the dominoes start to fall a little bit. If I'm the Falcons, I'm looking at this Colts offense last week, and I'm looking at exactly where they struggled. Jonathan Taylor before last week had 5 games over 110, 115 yards from scrimmage, dominating. And his average was massively, massively down last week at 2.9 yards per attempt, 29 yards and 8 carries in the first half against Pittsburgh. We seen last week, not just on the run game, but on the pass game, how dominant the Steelers defense was. And let's be quite frank, I seen that team play not only in Dublin, but 2 weeks ago in Pittsburgh. And that defense 2 weeks ago was nowhere near the level it should have been at. Was it a stark improvement last week, or was it the Colts aren't great here situation? And that's a genuine question that we need to ask, regardless if they're 7-1 or 7-2. At the same time, Daniel Jones, for as good as he has been over the last 7 to 9 games, over the average stretch, he's committed 5 turnovers and was sacked 5 times last week. The big question mark is what happened, because there was no, serious moment where you're thinking, well, there's a pattern emerging here. There was one where Peyton Wilson looked like he was trying to follow Taylor in coverage, and then he got him. But then there was no situation where you're going, like, God, I can pinpoint what the issue is here. And it's like, well, if this happens again, what's the question mark here? Because I know Colts fans are going to hate me saying this. I would love nothing more than to see an organization like the Colts, who have loaded up on both sides of the ball, who have been waiting for so long to be this good, go out this weekend, win this game, go 8-2. Look at their schedule over the next few weeks. They've got the Chiefs coming up. I'm nearly certain they play the Seahawks. They've won enough games to be in that mix. I understand that, but they still need to go over that final hump. But certainly for me, it's, if the run game can't get going with Jonathan Taylor this weekend, they're going to look at Alec Pierce and Pittman, 2 guys that for the first time this season went over 100 yards each last week on the day itself. It's that combination, and we've seen the Falcons at certain times over the last few years where they can come in and they can put up a big defensive performance. The question mark is, does the neutral site, does the travel, does the hangover from last week affect this Colts team? And I think that's the question mark, and I think that's the story mark, not just of this game, Mark and Jason, but I think if the Colts were to lose this week, suddenly it starts to go down a little bit. And we do see that team that I think Jason or yourself, Mark, was talking about, where we see teams come in and come out and suddenly don't get down the stretch. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter where you are until February. Yes, it matters to an extent of how many games you've won by this point of the year. But as long as you're in the mix come January, that's all that matters. No one's going to care about the fact that the Colts have won 7 games in 4 or 5 weeks. So it's really on them now. It's on them now to hit home, to continue this going and to keep it going, because we know how good the defense was last week against the Steelers, who weren't that great offensively. It's on the offense to come back and really show up this week, in my opinion.
I think the issue, as you've brought it out of me now, I don't think that the Falcons are the team just because their run defense is so poor, not abysmally poor, but it's like, towards the bottom of the NFL in terms of rankings. I think it's what you're saying is, when it comes to the playoffs and teams are so focused on defending the run, is that where they ultimately get found out and, get dumped out, even though they could be a 1 or 2 seed, to get dumped out early because teams are prepared for Jonathan Taylor in a way that I don't think that the Falcons are going to be able to do to them this weekend. Again, the other thing is they could also be a serious game if the Falcons are able to get beat on going and stuff, Jones turned into a pumpkin, says Wayne, at Halloween, and Falcons will win at this weekend. Oh, geez, big call saying the Falcons going to win this weekend.
But no one's given them a chance. And just for anyone, just to reiterate that, our partners SBK have got a link in the bio, even money for the Colts to win the game. We give our game picks before we end this segment on the podcast, because I feel like it's a nice little end to the segment.
Yeah, but I think we're all going to go with the obvious one. I hope it's a good game in Indianapolis. In Berlin. But yeah, I'm going to go for the Colts anyway. It's a safe pick, isn't it?
Some of the Colts' weaknesses are also kind of areas that Atlanta struggles. So in a way, I think that bodes well for the Colts. The Colts are bad at defense, getting off the field on third down. That's an area Atlanta aren't good at, converting third downs. Colts defense tends to play very strong in the red zone. Atlanta not so good on offense. So coupled with their inability to get Bijan Robinson going lately, and Colts solid run defense led by DeForest Buckner, I do see a handy victory for the Colts here.
And do you know what the funny thing is with the Bijan Robinson? It's like, where did that come from? He was like not playing lights out, but he's playing fairly well in this first few games. It was against, of all teams, the Miami Dolphins, who were like, if they probably are the worst, one of the worst run defenses there 2 weeks ago, out of nowhere, just forced them to run inside. Like they just completely removed any kind of outside run from the Atlanta Falcons, and that just like the whole Atlanta Falcons offense just ground to a halt. And if the Dolphins can do it, that's the worry for the Falcons going forward. If the Dolphins are able to do it, a lot of other teams will be too.
Well, as a man that's spending a lot of money to go out to Madrid next weekend, I hope the Dolphins are a great football team. In terms of this one, very quickly, interesting. Colts have a bye week, and then they play the Chiefs. You've got the Seahawks 2 weeks after that, but a really interesting time to have a bye week in the middle of November. It's really nice in the stretch. It gives them that bit of a break, whereas you've got teams that have week 4, week 5. Big difference. But in terms of this game on Sunday, again, 2:30 p.m., Virgin Media 2 between the Colts and the Falcons. For me, I think it's going to be a blowout. I think the Colts are going to beat them by 20 odd points. That's good. Yeah. Can we all, as we end this podcast segment, can we all pray that Michael makes his flight home on Sunday? Because I didn't realize this, but the Olympiastadion is 1 hour and 27 minutes from the airport. And I'm already panicking. And I will leave at the start of the fourth quarter.
I'm so glad I'm not going to that game all of a sudden. Oh, that's brutal, Michael. Jeez, we've left it close enough. Like Frankfurt, you couldn't be asking for better. It's like 20 minutes down the way. The train like literally pulls up to the stadium. Oh, best luck to you. You know those fans are going to be packing that train out too.
And per source, I believe the NFL is going to announce the next German city next week. And I believe it might be Dortmund. And more to come on that with a little nugget at the end. I have no association with the NFL, nor do I have any association with NFL Deutschland. This has been Pro Football Ireland's first podcast segment for this week. Again, check out SBK's odds in the bio below. 18 plus, please be gamble aware. We'll catch you on the other side. Okay, that was good fun. Here we go, 3, 2, 1. Week 10 of the NFL season rolls on. Pro Football Ireland's Week 10 NFL preview show presented by SBK. 18 plus, please be gamble aware. Sportsbook only. We were saying before to check out the big odds in the bio. The Colts at evens. Only for a certain amount of people. Click in the bio, check it out. Michael McQuaid, Mark Hogan, Jason Hayes. And Mark, I always sort of say, can you believe it's week 10? It's a nice time of the season. People saying before Daniel Jones turned into a pumpkin. I guess for any of our UK or Scottish listeners, it was Guy Fawkes night this week. So people are still fireworking away, shall we say.
Yeah, and definitely some big matchups. I mean, in this segment, what we're talking 49ers, Rams, Eagles, Packers, those feel huge. And then kind of looking at a bit of the playoff races, that comes into view. It's just that time of year, Michael.
It's very good. Jason, what's the crack down in Cork at the minute? Are people complaining that we're not taking somebody down to Cork for a live event mere months after coming back?
Yeah, I'm just getting a few hate letters, all right, Mick, mostly addressed to you. But I'm protecting you from it. Look, I'm trying to calm down the people of Cork. Our time will come again. It's okay.
It will come again. I mean, the last time I checked is an hour and 20 from Killarney, so I'll say no more and get in trouble when I say that. I know there's no proper road. That's the rumor down there.
And then you're after teasing there, and I can ask this absolutely openly and honestly. So the NFL is going to announce a German game next week, or I think you're on mute, Michael, for a second.
No, I was trying to do something. I'll bring it up in a second. My understanding, I've seen Alexander Steinforth has got a post out saying that they will announce a new city in a new location in the next week and a half.
So I bring that up just in terms of if there was an Ireland game to be announced, and again, I can say this openly and honestly because I do not know anything. So we don't necessarily have to wait until the end of the season would be the takeaway from that if the NFL is going to be announcing, if we were to get another one. It may be just something that we're going to be having to look out for, but that's definitely interesting if it's going to be happening in Germany. Maybe we
and I can't confirm it's Dortmund, but Dortmund would make sense. I don't really think of any other city because they can just go back to Frankfurt again, they can go to Munich again, but my understanding is the deal in Berlin is 25, 27, 29. But I would genuinely expect there to be 2 games in Germany next year, and anything else is hearsay. On the college podcast, which you can listen to now, folks, I have to bring this up because Dara mentioned that O'Connell Diggin mentioned actually that he's coming up north for the first time whenever Armagh play Kerry in March. So I guess my question is, Dara Carger said to me, Mark, he said, when do Armagh and Tyrone play each other, as a joke, not realising that we don't do that next year because we are absolutely right. So when do Tyrone and Kildare play each other in the national championship? Have you any date figured out?
in the championship? Well, Kildare obviously do have the only. Well, I guess no. Any of the Division 1 teams are definitely through to the All Ireland series. But as Tailteann Cup winners this year, we will be in the All Ireland series. So that's what I'm happy for. And you know, we're also a Division 1 hurling team. So I saw that we'll have the likes of Galway coming to Newbridge next year to take part in the Leinster Championship. There's an away game to Kilkenny. So yeah, I'm excited for I love going to the hurling matches anyway. Normally I'm following your friend James Scahill around with Galway. But it'll be exciting to go on the road with Kildare hurlers next year and hopefully be able to get at least one game that isn't double digits.
Well, let me say this, okay? I will go down to Newbridge if you come to Omagh. If you do. Hold on, Jason, aren't the footballers in Division 2 as well? Cork, or are they not good enough?
I honestly, I don't know, Mick. I know I'm living I don't know. Yeah, look, it's Cork, admittedly, as good as we are hurling supporters, your average Cork man isn't as in tune with the football. But I will say
they were super into it when they were beating Kerry at halftime of the Munster final, and then Kerry showed their true colours after. I'm sure didn't they bring them to added time? Was it added time in the Munster final, and then it was the round robin game they were winning or beating them at
Munster
halftime.
Final was the Munster final was a close one. Then in the round robin,
see, you remember that one well. They should have beaten them there.
They should have. A couple of decisions went against them as well. But I do live the area I live in the county last weekend, so it's been every pub in my vicinity has just been jammed with blue and yellow. It's been a good crack. The Bears. Yeah, go on, Mick. Is there news?
There is good timing here. So there's a tour. Me and Reynolds are going to Tyrone, Galway, and Killarney. And unfortunately, Mark, Tyrone against Kildare is on the same day that I'm in Killarney, 6:00 in Omagh on a Saturday night. That, for people wondering, is the night before Championship Sunday. And Mark, will we see either of these teams in Championship Sunday? And when I say these teams, I mean the Rams or the Niners.
I can certainly see the Rams being one of them. The 49ers, for me, if you want to kick off into the game, it's a 6-3 49ers team, which is kind of beggars belief, really, that they've been able to hold on. It's fitting that we're checking back in with them for the first time since week 7 was the last time we looked at the 49ers. And that was their first game without Fred Warner. So now they've just lost another crucial starter, their first round pick, defensive lineman Mikael Williams, to an knee injury. This team has 11 sacks on the year. That's tied for the second fewest in the NFL. Williams paired with Bryce Huff, who's out injured at the moment. I think he might be able to come back this week or next week. And Nick Bosa, who's obviously done for the year. Those 3 players account for 7 of the 11 sacks. Add in that Cleveland Farrell, who was signed to the practice squad last year and then elevated also as another sack. Those 3 guys out have 7 of the 11 sacks. Farrell has another one. It's just not what we expect from the 49ers. And I guess I'm bringing up that point just to highlight, do they have the bodies to keep up with the LA Rams? I certainly don't think that they do there in the defensive backs. They've obviously looked different since Fred Warner was out there, just not as organized. Mikael Williams not only has gotten those sacks, but he's actually a better run defender. The defense as a whole, even when we look at the trade deadline there, this week, there were so many holes to fill. They were linked with a lot of names, but I think it was just too big of a job that one man alone wasn't going to get it done. And I think even how John Lynch talked afterwards, that they weren't going to get a guy that is only a 1-year deal, that it's, their window will be open next year. I'm not saying it was a defeated attitude, but it's definitely not we have to go all in, because they obviously understand that they are so crippled and handicapped on the defensive side. And what a matchup to get against the LA Rams. Look, they were 8.5-point underdogs, and they were able to go to overtime in 5 weeks ago. Matthew Stafford is obviously
early October.
Yeah, and look, Matthew Stafford has been absolutely lights out. 4 touchdowns against the Saints last week, 5 the week before when we saw them play against the Jaguars in London. It's a lot of work for the 49ers. And look, if they're able to put it up, then all of a sudden it's like, all right, if they're able to be like the Detroit Lions last year, just able to overcome injury. But it's a tough ask, Michael. Even with Rob Saleh, I love him as a defensive coordinator, but it's a big ask.
I don't want to flatline here and get very quick on the Rams, because I don't think we need to talk too much about the Rams offense that much. So I'll go to Jason first to talk about the Niners offense. And Jason, remember, we have a lot of fantastic Niners faithful in Ireland. The Niners are actually credentialing us on Sunday. Shout out to Gavin from Tyrone, who is our mailbox for everything at the Super Bowl this year. Shout out to you, my friend. You're driving everybody to Levi Stadium. What's your thoughts on this game, Jason? Obviously, the Niners are going to win by a country mile in that case.
I think it'll be close. I think the nature of the NFC West is anyone could beat anyone. Even in down years, anyone could beat anyone. Kyle Shanahan does have the better of Sean McVay over their careers together. 12-7. Which is more one-sided than I thought, especially when you consider that the Rams are good year in, year out, and the 49ers have had a couple of years where they're just decimated by injuries and put in these kind of, 4-12 seasons randomly. So I was surprised to see Shanahan's dominance there in terms of a coaching battle. Obviously, a massive question this week is Brock Purdy going to be healthy? Is he going to return? Do they really want him to return? Yes, I think is the answer. Shanahan says it's the answer very adamantly, more adamantly than Jonathan Gannon was saying he wants a quarterback, but that's another story. He wasn't ruled out last week for the first time, so I think he is obviously trending upwards, and I expect him to go straight back into the lineup as soon as he's in a position to do so. But credit to Mac Jones, he's been 5-2 in his time sans Brock Purdy. And probably put in his best game yet, most recently against the New York Giants with a 135 quarterback rating. Also played very well in that previous encounter that you mentioned, Mark, when they actually got the better of the Rams in an overtime victory. That game, Mac Jones was missing George Kittle and his top 3 receivers. So to manage to...
Kendrick Bourne game.
There. Sorry?
It was the Kendrick Bourne game. It was all Kendrick Bourne. And
exactly.
It just popped up a comment there. I'll read it back out again. I'll put it back up. Interesting to see if the State Rams run D can shut down McCaffrey. I don't know if it's necessarily just about the run game, though. It's all yak yards that they're going for. And look, there's a quarterback controversy being raised by Dan Orlovsky earlier on ESPN. And I kind of see it because this is the Kyle Shanahan offense that, it was always when he was rattling through so many quarterbacks, and then why wouldn't you pay Brock Purdy? It's that, Kyle Shanahan can scheme it up. He's definitely getting it done with Mac Jones right now, and it's 2.3 yards per seconds per pass, whatever. I'm messing my words up here. He's getting the ball out so fast, it's almost as fast as Aaron Rodgers is, and we know that offense is completely based on yak yards. So it's bottling up Christian McCaffrey in the run game doesn't mean that you can't get him going in the pass game, and that in turn loosens up that run game or that run.
Yeah, I mean, it's essentially it's an extension of the run game at times. McCaffrey actually is more receiving yards right now than rushing yards. 626 versus 596. So I mean, he is having a very productive season in just terms of yards from scrimmage. But I do think it's there is something to the fact that their running game has regressed. Like McCaffrey himself, he's only broken over 4 yards per carry twice this season. He's averaging 3.5 on the year, which is just ridiculously low. And the team as a whole is 26th in the league in rushing. And I was trying to chart back when the last time they ranked that low in the NFL as a rushing offense. I got back to 2016. I was on this rubbish website where it took so long to go year by year. So I gave it up. It's at least 2016, but I'm putting money on it that they weren't that low for a decent time after that as well.
I think in the era of AI, that must be applauded. The fact that you went deep diving for a long time.
No, I can't.
Here, I have a number coming up later on, and I only went 3 seasons deep on it. And just like that, Michael, I was getting frustrated that ChatGPT wouldn't help me out with the official stat. So I had to do it myself, and it's like, God, the marker 5 years ago wouldn't know himself.
I'm a big Grok guy, to be honest. Big Grok guy, I'm not going to lie. Big thanks to everybody watching this live tonight. I know there's a lot of stuff going on. The Traders is on. I believe Mark is going on a celebrity version in Ireland this January. Jason is currently in talks for Dancing with the Stars Ireland as well. So a lot going on here. In terms of stars, we talk about the Rams?
Yeah, please do. Look, because they were just so impressive in London that anyone who was obviously watching our coverage, that's like, it just had such an impact on me that they just were able to turn on, like I said, what was it, 5 touchdown game from, and that was without Puka. Like, when you ask at the start of this, could this be a potential have a Super Bowl or certainly an NFC Championship team in it? Like, I have to, if I was to nail on one team into the 2 open spots in the NFC Championship game, I have to put the Rams in. I'm so impressed by them right now. Their defense, like you're talking about, like, oh my God, it's so good.
I think it's funny because we've seen over the last few years where the Rams have not had incredible starts, and then they find a way to bring themselves up, heat themselves up during the season to then make that playoff run. We've seen them years ago get to the promised land, but we have seen a bit of stuttering throughout that. We've seen years where it hasn't worked. And then you look at the way they've played this year, because you've mentioned there about the game that we had the chance to work for Virgin for, Mark, the London game where they were just beyond dominant. It looked over after the first, midway after the first quarter, and they didn't even have their most offensive weapon, which, as you've correctly said there, like, that's absolutely ridiculous. And I would say to anybody that has the ability to watch games back and hasn't done so yet for week 9, go back, sit down, and just sit and watch every offensive play for the Rams against the Saints last week. And it's easy for anybody to say, oh, well, the Saints are trash, the Saints aren't a great team, blah, 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 blah. They were 20 or 30 points up with 6 minutes left in the fourth quarter. It's Jimmy Garoppolo's birthday. And any other team would have him in, would have all the backups in. But Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford love it that much that they were like, no, we're staying out. We're getting down the field. We're going to hand the ball off. We're going to run. We're going to do this. You're talking about a different standard. It's a new standard performance from this Rams team throughout the first, I would say, 9 weeks or the first 8 weeks of the season, because they've had their bye week post-London. The dominance that they showed against the Saints was impeccable. And you have to ask now how they're going to replace a guy like Tutu Atwell, who we don't expect to see play for a bit in one sense of the word. But when you look at, you've got guys like Puka, you obviously got Davante Adams. Like, let's talk about one element of it. Terrence Ferguson was lined up in the slot last week. They have different guys that can come in and make different, and they can make different options. But McVay is so good, and this offense is so good at developing and using multiple tight end sets. They use 13 personnel or 3 tight ends on 35 of their 77 offensive plays last week. Never mind the fact that Matthew Stafford, frankly, and I've seen Dan Orlovsky talking about it. Sorry, Mark, if you said this, he'll be in an MVP conversation come the end of the month. He's already in the MVP conversation. The identity they have, the confidence that they have, and the way that Matthew Stafford is playing complementary football, but he knows when to hand it off to a run game which exists and is fun to watch as well, for me is not just fun, but it's proven to the rest of the league that this Rams team are ready to take the next step this season. Their last 3 games, they've won by a combined 66 points. And here's the mad stat here, because Mark, you said you've got a number, right? Here's my number for this week. You ready? If you can find it. So Davante Adams has had 8 receiving touchdowns in the league this year, currently in top of the NFL, right? While the Rams have struggled in the red zones over the last few years, currently he has 16 red zone targets, 5 touchdown catches in the last 2 games. What were the lengths of those touchdown catches? 3 yards, 4 yards, 2 yards, 1 yard, and 1 yard. So if I'm sitting here talking about how good Matthew Stafford is pelting the ball down the field, they're efficient on the run game, they're just finding ways to make it work. Even in the red zone, Adams is getting open. He's finding ways to get that slot into him and get the ball into his hands. It's just so refreshing to watch. And frankly, when they have different injuries on the offensive line, when Puka wasn't there, they're still making it work. And to be fair to the team we talked about in the first part of this podcast, like Indianapolis, if they can just continue to get better and continue to find ways to evolve themselves, they're going to be right in the mix. And I fully agree with what you said right now in terms of in terms of January, if you had to put a team in the final four in the NFC genuinely for divisional, the Rams are right up there. They're one of the best teams in the NFL, and it wouldn't surprise me in any way, shape, or form if they were to take it would be ironic after all the Niners fans are going down to, they call it Rams or Levi South, if all the Rams fans suddenly went up to Levi Stadium for the Super Bowl. I wouldn't be surprised if they were. They're that good. I do expect a tight game this weekend, though. I think the Niners will bring it to them. And just to add to what Jason said as well, and what you lads have said, very, very impressed with Mac Jones. I've really changed my opinion of him. He looks so settled, so confident, but also just so relaxed. And excited to see this game. If the run game can go on for the Niners, you never know. Could be interesting.
John, I don't want to, obviously, we've way talked over these guys. The one thing I'll say about the red zone is, I think it was coming off the Niners game the last time. What were the numbers there? You said 5 of 16 he's obviously scored on. Like, I think it was coming off that game. We were like, you know what? We thought that it was just plug him in and he catches everything and sweeps up in the red zone. That wasn't the case. It's obviously, yeah, you're sharing Jared's comment again. Stafford using Adams like Rodgers did near the goal line. How does he always get open in the end zone? And it's like, I think that that's what they expected. It wasn't just automatic at the start of the season, but we're definitely seeing it pay dividends now, having one of the best red zone receivers of all time being with the Rams.
Let's move on. I've actually got a very sore throat this week, so I'm doing really well. I'm really proud of myself, lads. Packers, Eagles, Jesus Christ, what a game. What time is this game at this week?
Do you know, because it must be in the early slate when it's Packers. I think
it's Monday, is it?
Yeah, it's Monday. Do you know, because we actually planned this podcast in week 9, because week 9 we were kind of like, and sure, look, going into the witching hour, they're like, what, one game was it within 10 points or something like that? This is a class slate of games. To say that we really had to because I know we could have talked about the Bucs game as well. But yeah, going against the Eagles versus the Packers, a 6-2 team versus a 5-2-1 team. And I suppose if you want me to jump off, the one thing with the Packers is, hopefully this is one of those good Packers games, because we can see them play sometimes and they look absolutely outrageous on offense, and sometimes they just look just terrible. And I think it's really based on the team, because they have the numbers, their EPA, their explosiveness, everything. It's top 5, but then you see them playing with their food essentially against the Browns and the Panthers, 2 teams that you would expect them to absolutely tee up on. They don't. And Matt LaFleur's offense is absolutely fantastic, but for some reason it just gets outrageously conservative, and the screen passes are killing Packers fans right now. When he's playing Arizona, Matt LaFleur uses his quarterback like he's an MVP quarterback. But then, like, look at what happened last week early in the fourth quarter, they're down by 7. You have a 3rd and 3 at the Panthers' 8-yard line. What do? They go to Emmanuel Wilson on a screen, and he loses 5 yards. Now you're 4th and 8, and now you do dial up Jordan Love, but he's not able to get out of pressure. They get pressure on him straight away. Hindsight's amazing to say, oh, you should have gone for 3, because that was ultimately what they lost the game by. But for me, if you know it's 2 down territory, and I know the advantages of a screen in the red zone, but give me a break. Like, go for the end zone if that's what you're going to do. I have to question whether he knew himself that it was 2 down territory. So I had a look at the air yards on what's it called? NFL. What's it? This next gen stats. So I was looking at this little thing. It's like, in terms of throwing the ball, it is so boom or bust. He's heavy on short throws, and when the deep shots are deep, they are deep. There's so little in between. So there last week, he had 23 passes, 6 yards or less. 12 passes were 6 yards or more. None of those came between the 25 and the 45-yard lines. But then he used 3 bombs within the 45 and 50. So it's like, it's very shallow, or they're going right down the field. And yeah, Christian Watson is able to come down with one of those 50 yards plays, and it's like, that's the highlight. But it's like, why are we doing screens all the time? Like, it's so frustrating to see it go. I have the number somewhere. I'm after losing it, but I think they had 9 screens in this game. It's just, when you have Jordan Love, I just don't know what Matt LaFleur is doing sometimes, but I think it's all related and linked to when they have a good team like the Eagles, when they play against the Steelers or when they play against the Lions in week 1, they're willing to be aggressive on offense because they believe that's how they have to get it done. But when they have to play against a team that they see as not an NFC contender, they play it light. At least we have the Philadelphia Eagles this week. They'll have to take them seriously.
Who have you got on this matchup, Mr. Hez?
Yeah, I was looking at the Eagles offense this week. I must say, I don't know, this is kind of bad to say, but I don't really enjoy watching this Eagles team this season. Like this Eagles offense, I mean, this season. Much more excited to look at the Packers offense versus Eagles defense side of the ball this week. But it's just a bit lackluster. And they are trending upwards these last couple of weeks. You know, that foundation of Hurts and Barkley, they've both got going in the last 2 games, albeit against maybe lesser opposition in terms of defenses. But on the season, you know, if you do want to look at those stats, it is pretty unimpressive. 19th in the league in rushing, 25th in passing. They do find themselves up in 10th in terms of scoring. So at least they're managing to convert. A big part of that is their ability to convert in the red zone, 85% touchdown rate, which is the best in the league. Large part of that down to the beloved tush push, no doubt. But in areas that they excelled at last year down the stretch, I suppose we can't forget that last season they probably again didn't look like they were firing on all cylinders at the start of the season, and slowly ramped up as the season goes on. You'll be hoping that they continue this positive trend recently, because I talked about McCaffrey a while ago and how he's not putting up the numbers he normally does. Barkley's been very much the same, and if it wasn't for a fantastic game against the Giants where he had 150 yards, then we'd probably be looking at him a lot more pessimistically right now, because the Eagles do lean on the run, but they just aren't doing it to a very high level. Jalen Hurts, 25th in the league in pass attempts, and virtually everyone behind him is missed time. So that shows how much they're trying to keep the ball out of his hands, and just when they have that strong defense, I suppose they're only doing the minimum amount of what they need to do. Again, statistically, it might be misleading, but he looks good. 15 touchdowns, just 1 interception. But it's just like this offense is doing the bare minimum week in, week out to get the wins, because they know they have such a good defense on the other side. If they put up low, mid-20s, that's going to be enough. And very risk averse. Third down conversion, they're amongst the worst in the league. Part of that will be because they probably play for 4th down more than any other team, again, with that tush push. I don't know. It's a difficult game to call. I probably am leaning towards the Packers overall in this one, mainly because of that home field advantage. We have Barkley, who's a groin issue. See how that is after the bye week, whether he's fully healthy. AJ Brown missed the last game as well. So a couple of key pieces of offense, maybe not in full health for the Eagles, which makes me kind of think might go with the Packers on this one.
I mean, I think if anybody watched that game last week for Green Bay, and you can have an argument that Carolina didn't stop. They gave everything that day, but the Packers on both sides of the ball last weekend were very, 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 very poor. And I don't want to focus on the offense because Mark already has, but when you look at the way that Jordan Love played, it doesn't exactly give me confidence at this point in the year. It was, I think Derek Carr called it was the most typical Packers loss you could get, the sort of loss you don't expect, and that seems to be the way of what they are. Luckily for them, 2 different elements. They have time to regroup on this and get better. Obviously a fantastic opportunity this weekend. But secondly, they have a uniform that will hopefully never see the light of day ever again. I don't know what the hell that was. I'm glad we got some likes off Instagram for it, but certainly not one that I would be flocking to the shops to buy. The defensive coordinator, Jeff Healy, for the Packers last year helped guide the Packers to top 10 in total defense, top 5 in run defense, 7th in scoring defense. So my question is, where in the name of God was that last week? Because, okay, fair enough. Bryce Young last week was under pressure. He had 102 yards in the game, 11 passes. Didn't throw a touchdown pass and was obviously intercepted. I think that was towards the end of the game. Healy and the Packers defense only allowed just under 4.9 yards pass per attempt. which you think would be good enough to win a game, but albeit it was a very, very tight one. We've seen the completions that Bryce Young had towards the end, but then that's when it started to go. And if I'm the Eagles, and Jason talks about Saquon Barkley there, I look at the fact that they've given up 163 rushing yards, 130 to Rico Dowdle. And that just allowed the Panthers to take over the game, limit possessions, limit the time on the clock for the Packers. And it's a really important thing to talk about, because when you lose guys like Colby Wooden during the game, when you start to make that easier on the run game for them, you're going to lose the game. You're going to lose the run of the game as well. Ignore the pun. They really, really struggled last week on that. And if I'm Saquon, if I'm RB2, RB3 in Philadelphia, I'm licking my lips, because we can say all we want about Lambeau, about the atmosphere, about the expectation, about the home crowd. If the Packers play anywhere like they played last week, they haven't a chance on Sunday or on Monday or whenever the game is. Apologies. The first 4 trips that they had to the end zone or to the red zone last week, they only got 6 points. We've seen what happened with Brandon McManus. They had a different guy in the locker room. Something needs to give there. The thing is, the defense at times last week were stingy, and we can say that they done well in terms of the points they limited to. But in terms of disruption, in terms of taking over the game, you look at the Steelers and look at what they were able to do against Daniel Jones. They were going up against the Carolina Panthers. And yes, they've got some young weapons there. They should have been way better than what they were. I would be concerned for them going up against Philadelphia, because we know that Philadelphia like to do certain things. The tush push, for one, handing it off another. But we will see a game. We seen one a couple of weeks ago. I know we did. But we will see a game on the road for Philadelphia where you're not afraid to throw it to certain guys. AJ Brown could be one if he is active on the weekend. I don't know what to expect here, but if I had to pick a team right now, I think the Eagles are going to win this game by at least a score. And I sound like Stephen A. Smith saying that, but after watching Green Bay at the weekend, I just can't see any other situation, to be honest. I think they're in trouble at the minute unless they get it going.
Yeah, I just checked up on SPK, 2.5 point spread in favor of the Green Bay Packers, which I think is interesting too, because again, they just come back to the point, they seem to be aggressive when they obviously are taking the other opposition seriously, but we've just seen them lay absolute eggs against the Browns, and that clock management I won't even get into, but there was obviously issues against, we saw it against the Browns, we saw it against the Cowboys, when Matt LaFleur gets a bit almost flustered or something's crazy. But the one thing I will say is Tucker Kraft being out at tight end is huge, and I thought that was,
he was so good in person a couple weeks ago. He
has 32 catches for a team high 489 yards. So when you're saying that wide receiver group hasn't created separation in terms of who the number one guy is, which is obviously a luxury that they have there in Green Bay, but like the Tucker Kraft injury is enough to me that I thought it would have swung that line a bit more.
He has a catch for every county in Ireland. There you go. Let's finish off by doing a really cool one. We're obviously way past halfway of the season now. We're going to talk about a team each that we think will not make the playoffs that currently look like they might. In terms of me, I have the least prep for this segment, but I've got a decent team. So I'll let one of you guys go first. Jason, go you first. You haven't put it in a few minutes.
Yeah, I've probably the easiest pick. I know myself and Michael picked first in this one.
Have you though? Have you?
Might have a more difficult case to make. Of the Jags, I think they're 7th seed right now, but they're definitely at the lower end of the AFC. Currently in the playoff, don't think they'll ultimately make it. Combination of how they're playing. It's not so much remaining schedule, because the remaining schedule isn't actually bad, but how they're playing and who their competitors are for that lower seed in the AFC. I think we've seen a decent amount of this season now, and they have stepped forward under Liam Cohen, but there's still just so much that this team, so much in areas that they have to grow. On offense, 21st in the league in points per game, and Trevor Lawrence it's been a very lackluster season from my point of view. You know, we all saw him in London, and it just looked out of sync completely with his receivers, and in an era where efficient quarterback ratings are becoming the norm for average guys. Lawrence is struggling down at 79 in terms of passer rating. Hasn't cracked 100 in a single game. So I kind of came into this looking at the Jags thinking that maybe they were a bit up and down on offense, but they're just kind of consistently a bit lackluster right now, doing just enough to win games against some lesser teams. They put up some good performance, obviously, against the likes of the Chiefs. But overall, Brian Thomas, he hasn't backed up his rookie season to this point. Just 30 catches on 60 targets. So, when your top receiver is only catching 50% of the balls going his way, that's an issue. Travis Hunter is out for the next few games. They just brought in Jacoby Myers actually at the deadline, so we'll see if he can make any sort of difference to that receiving room. On defense, again, they have issues. Not bad, it's kind of middling defense, but it does worry me at times how easy opposing quarterbacks are able to move the ball against them. And I think the biggest issue of all on defense is that defensive line, which is just one of the poorer units in the league. So that's kind of the issue they have as a team right now. I just don't see them, if they do manage to get into playoffs, I just don't see them as any sort of threat to some of the top teams in the league. They're just really kind of a middle of the pack team right now as I see it, which is positive, which is progression from last year. So you shouldn't be too down on that. But in terms of the playoff picture, look, I'll make some assumptions in the AFC right now. I think Colts, they'd have to do something very badly from this point to not go on and win that division. So let's say the Colts are winning the South. Bills and the Patriots, we're going to say that's 2 teams in from the AFC East. So that's 5 teams in the AFC who have basically locked in your 4 division winners, and either Bills or the Pats. AFC West are likely to have 2 teams going in at least from there. So when you're really looking at the Jaguars and what they have to do to keep this playoff spot, they must beat at least one of the Chiefs, Chargers, or Broncos. I'm certainly putting the Chiefs and Broncos ahead of them in that situation. So Chargers, I do think they're a better team as well.
Here, I can see Michael wants to come in on that, Jason. He's ready to go.
I love you so much for this right now, because I have literally 4 bullet points here, right? Like, you have literally come in with the perfect one. I was sort of thinking to myself, I hate whenever I don't fully believe in something and I have to try and back it up, because I sort of feel like they could go on a run. But then what Jason just said there now, in terms of for people on the podcast, the Chargers, right? They are sitting second in the AFC West now, 6-3. They've lost Joe Alt for the season. He's out. Like, they have a lot, to actually figure out there. There's no means or ways about it. You talk about that Jaguars game, and this is where, if this is a hypothetical situation that is going to happen, Jason, this Jaguars game in week 11 on the road, if they weren't to win that, because I think the Steelers will beat them on Sunday Night Football. So if they were suddenly to go to 6-4, that Jaguars game becomes crucial. Why? Because of what Jason said there, with the amount of teams already in the AFC potentially locked in that sense, hypothetically. Because after that, we know they got to play AFC West teams, but they have to face the Eagles, they have to go to the Chiefs, they have to face the Cowboys in Texas, and then they finish the season against the Denver Broncos. At the Broncos. And while I do think this is the one season where there's so much on the line and so much question marks around it, do I believe in what I have seen from the Chargers over the last 2 to 3 to 4 years, especially over the last 2 years with this new situation in terms of coach, but also with Justin Herbert? Do I feel like they're going to go in and absolutely play lights out over all those games? No, I don't. I think the biggest X factor for them and the biggest question mark is going to be, how do the Kansas City Chiefs respond? They've got a massive game, I think, against the Broncos in 2 or 3 weeks' time. Might be next week, actually. I might have got that wrong. If the Broncos beat the Chiefs, I think it turns a bit for the Chargers in terms of the AFC West. But it's really on them to go out and make these statement plays, statement wins. Losing out, not getting over that hump. They are a better team year on year. I just don't see how we don't see the Chiefs at the moment, if the Broncos win the West, at that bottom part of the AFC playoffs, which I feel like, in my opinion, if that does happen, I think the Chargers miss out, to be honest.
And also, just to wrap up the AFC before I know Mark's going to talk about the NFC,
The entire NFC.
I'm actually not, Jason. I'm actually not. So if you put me in, coach, because this was actually the number that I looked into, and I was like, I wanted to take an NFC team because I was like, there's no way in week 10 we're going to have nailed on every single playoff spot in one of the divisions. So this is where I started to look back over. I only got 3 years deep into this because this time last year we had already set the NFC, and we had also already set the AFC 2 years earlier than that. The in-between year was 2023. 5 teams were able to change. Sorry, I actually don't have the number in front of me, but just off the top of my head, it has been set twice in the last 3 years. One of the divisions has been set by week 10. And I looked through the NFC and I was trying to come up for an argument against the 49ers. And I was like, but I was like, I'm not going to do it. Like Michael just said there, it's like, I'm not going to make an argument for a team just to make.
Let's do the NFC next week.
No, there's no point, Michael, because like there's no way of doing it. Like, and this whole conversation actually came up off the back of a team that we last week, Michael, obviously we missed you as you were away. Jason and I said who could get into the playoff race. It was the alternative ask of this: who can get into the spots? And we both said, Jason said the Ravens, I said the Bengals, and we both came to the same point because the Steelers are there to be got in the AFC. I have no problem with the defense, even though we saw at the tailgate last week that they did obviously have the funeral for the defense of the Pittsburgh Steelers, but they obviously bounced back with that huge game. But it's the offense just not striking any fear. Rodgers alluded to it after the game last week, praising the play calling, but slammed the execution. In that Colts win, the defense set them up on such short fields that they had 225 total yards and including a season-low 38 rushing yards. What did it look like? 4.9 yards per pass, 1.7 yards per rush. Your $30 million wide receiver, DK Metcalf, had 2 catches for 6 yards. That's not the offense that you're supposed to be going for. Calvin Austin, I know, Michael, they like him obviously there in Pittsburgh, but he's not the George Pickens that you wish that you had. He's not the George Pickens to CeeDee Lamb that's making Dallas look so explosive. Why they didn't go after Raheed Shaheed at the trade deadline, that is exactly what they're missing. The tight ends, I love seeing them. I love that it could be Darnell Washington this week, Pat Freiermuth the next week, but they're not scaring defenses. They're not separating. They're catching the ball, and that's their job done. If they're at the goal line, they're able to get it over. But it's, again, depending on the Steelers defense setting them up on short yardage. They do play the Ravens twice, so the Ravens are 2 games back. They play the Ravens twice. The Ravens are control their own destiny. There's tough outs, like they do play the Lions and the Bills, and I would say, Michael, this Sunday night football matchup against the Chargers then becomes huge for seeding.
Well, Mark will never be on the Irish Steelers podcast presented by Aer Lingus ever again. After that comment, I'm joking. A very interesting discussion.
Do you know what? I will jump in because as I scroll down through my notes, I actually see I've workings, as I've called in 2024. It was the AFC was set, and then the NFC had a couple of teams sneak in. 5 teams in total changed in and out of the playoff race in 2023, and then only 2 teams were able to change around. So it's like, as we want to give teams hope, but this is the time of year that we've seen it. We've been doing these podcasts for years. We know that we start to focus on the same teams from here on out because there's only so many teams that matter, and maybe because there's so much parity, but it does seem a bit like the World Cup where a certain number of games are going to be played just to sew up essentially 1 or 2 spots that are open in the playoffs.
I think we're going to have more open spots than that come week 18. And the beautiful thing is, for these 2 gentlemen beside me, we have week 17, I believe, or week 16 on a Sunday after Christmas, with Christmas on the Thursday. So we are going to have a podcast that week this season. Very, very excited. And I will call everybody if we don't do it this year. I'm doing this publicly to take the complete hand, but very much looking forward to it. Any final words, lads?
We're doing headache again. Do you know, Michael, you don't realize when I put the notes together, we always have to presume that we have headaches still to go. Jason, do you have a headache ready?
Yes, Nico Collins. He loves playing the Jaguars. He's gone over 100 yards 4 games in a row against them. And the Jaguars have had some big games against them with those outside receivers. So Nico Collins is one to watch for me this week.
For me, as Michael tries and brings one up, I'm actually saying the tush push. This is a revenge game for.
I hate it, man. I hate it so much.
But it's a revenge. Who was the team that tried to get the touch push taken out? It was the Green Bay Packers. I can see it already happening, that there is going to be a goal to go situation and they're going to get that one over the line. There's going to be some subtle reference that says that the Philadelphia Eagles have been holding a grudge.
That fumble, I'm sorry now, but that fumble against the Giants a couple of weeks ago, as a disgrace that wasn't allowed. I mean, if there's ever an argument banning the touch push, I don't know where you stand, but the officials cannot enforce this play well enough. It's just so apparent. I'm sick of the play.
Jason Kelce able to come out after the fact as well. Like, I mean, yeah, very easily said afterwards to go out your extremely loyal fans now, Jason, look, he's a good guy or whatever. But yeah, that was outrageous. Michael, I'm surprised that you have all your little gifts normally ready to go. I'm surprised you don't have that ready to play out on the video right now.
Which one is it? Sorry, the
touch push that wasn't allowed when it was clearly the fumble.
No, I absolutely hate it. I look forward to getting to the owners' meeting. Going to try and go to the owners' meetings next year. I'm not going to go, but I'm looking forward to that tweet at the end of March saying it's done. I'm sick of it. We'll talk about that next week in the podcast. Give me John Fitzpatrick, tight end 2 for the Green Bay Packers this week, to have at least one touchdown, 50 yards receiving. Why? Because he has an Irish tricolour on the back of his helmet. And on that note, we are presented by SBK, folks. Remember, Colts even money in the bio. Check it out, 18 plus. Please be gamble aware. And outside of the advertising talk, a big thanks to SBK. Really, really good odds. Enjoy using the app. And a big thanks to them for the support. Penultimate international game this weekend. I'm going to be in Madrid. The entire college team are going to be... I'm going to be in Berlin, sorry. If I go to Madrid, that'll be weird. The entire college team are going to Madrid next week. And who knows, maybe we'll get Mark or Jason a flight to Madrid next Sunday.
Michael, before you sign off, we didn't get a ton of questions that we didn't throw up on the screen already. But I think 11 minutes into the podcast, Sean Quinn did ask, is J.R. Mahon's Guinness good? LOL. I would say that Joe, that does be working downstairs, is one of the nicest barmen in Ireland. He pours a fantastic Guinness. On the top floor, I did have an issue with it during the NFL. It was a girl that had not poured a Guinness before, and it was splitting the G itself, the head. That wasn't great. But there is one offer that I obviously at the first section that we did this week, I was gushing about J.R. Mahon's. They also have a really amazing deal. It will not sound good to either of you men that live outside of Dublin, paying probably $4.50 for a pint, but actually they're doing €5 pints in the NFL section on a Sunday of their own stout, their own pale ale, and I think they might have a red ale. So if you are looking for a pint, I think €5 is a fantastic pint, price in Dublin.
Especially when you have I paid in the Jazz Fest last week. $8.50 in the Metropole Hotel.
£4. It's £4.60 in Dungannon.
My local pub is $6.80 standard price, so you're doing well down there, Michael.
What's down there? What's £4.60 in euros? 5.60 or 5.70 or something? Not even, probably 5.20, 5.30.
I suppose that's probably closer to what my dad is paying. It's 5.20, which I suppose you probably get that there, Jason, in Cork, yeah.
Anybody in the car
is
sitting here now going,
€6 minimum.
Anybody in the car,
listeners.
Anybody in the car, thank you so much for listening. Do check out, we got the college podcast coming up there. We've got Jeff's picks. The Monday morning boys are back as well on Monday. We're in Madrid next week, Berlin this weekend. SBK, big thanks to them. Check out the link in the bio. Come to Mahon's on Thanksgiving. The link is linktr.ee/PF Ireland. Guests announced on Friday. Tour with myself and Reynolds, Tyrone, Galway, Killarney. On that note, thank you. God bless. Iwa. Good night. Have a great weekend, folks. And take care of yourselves.